Good evening, everybody. A very warm welcome to each and every one of you to the MBA Prep Talk, where we'll be discussing how to prepare for the personal interview round. And we'll also be listening to some of the interview experiences of IFMR students who are in the same place as yours a year back. My name is Mehak Rajpal, a first year MBA student here at Kriya University's IFMR Graduate School of Business. As a B school aspirant, a couple of years ago, cracking my interviewing experiences and cracking my entrance exams was just step one. It is one of the most daunting and important aspect of getting into a good B school. Like everything else in life, preparation is the key to success. And today, Kriya University's IFMR GSB wants to share with you a few tips and some advices on how you can be best prepared for your personal interview. So today we have a very strong and diverse lineup of speakers who bring us a variety of expertise and tips on the table. Firstly, I'd like to introduce and invite Professor Amit Das, who is not only the area chair of data science and information systems, but also the chair of admissions at IFMR GSB. He has interviewed 1,000 of students as the chair of admissions at IFMR GSB, and we would love to hear his advice and observations on how to ace a B school interview, especially how to best prepare for an IFMR GSB interview. Over to you, Professor Das.
Thank you, Mayank. Like Mayank said, I'm a very old person. I have been interviewing MBA candidates for the last, she didn't say this, she just meant it. I've been interviewing MBA candidates for the last 25 plus years. And it's always a pleasure talking to them because I think the best of graduates often apply to MBA school, being ambitious and seeking career growth. So it's always a pleasure to talk to them, whether or not we select them, whether or not they join us. I think the interaction is always fruitful on both sides. So that's the attitude with which we go into the interview. It is not an exercise in intimidating you or cross-checking, your knowledge of calculus and stuff like that. It's generally a conversation. But as in all conversations, you can imagine, we come prepared on our side, which means we have your application form and whatever materials you have submitted. We usually get them at least a day or two prior to the interview. And you can safely assume that we have looked at it, which is a good thing and a bad thing. Good thing as in we know you're an engineer and you're from Ahmedabad and you're this and that. Bad thing as in we noticed you graduated in so-and-so year and then there's nothing in it for a couple of years. So there is going to be a question about why the gap. And my suggestion would be to prepare your story. I'm not asking you to make things up. I'm not asking you to be dishonest, but you can pretty much expect that this is going to happen, that when you go in there, or let us say you study your undergraduate, your high school in science, and then you take up commerce in college, chances are there will be a question. Just, it's not being critical of you. It's not being, negative in any way, but it is just that we want to know what prompted that change. What made you realize that this was the career track for you? And so always assume that the interviewer has looked at your file. Don't count on passing anything by them. This is not a football game where you have a through pass. Nobody sees where it's going. We have seen where the application is coming from, where it is going. The same places where you think there is an issue, we usually will find an issue there. So if there is a low GPA in some term of the engineering 7th semester, or there is a problem with 3 backlogs the first year of some study somewhere, you can fear correctly that we have probably picked it up. And so I would sort of encourage you to not be dismayed by that, but rather take it as think of it as a potential possible question and have a good argument for it. A lot of things happen when you go to college. I went to IIT from a small town, and when I went there, I was very overwhelmed, and my first semester grades were not as great as they should have been, just because I was in the middle of adjusting to a new way of living and so on. So it's not that you need to have the perfect reply, but you do need to have a reply. Why did this happen? Are you going to do the same at IFMR? You'll come here and then you'll have a torrid first semester, and then spend the rest of the time just recovering from that. That's not good news. Okay, so there are questions that you and I can both anticipate, and I think that's part of your overall life story. I'm not saying this just in the context of the IFMR interview, because I realize that at this point you're probably preparing for a lot of interviews at different schools, I'm sure, and a lot of good schools, But what I'm saying is general to most, MBA programs. The interviewers would have read your file, and the same places where you think there could be an issue or there could be a weakness, they're likely to pick up. So you might as well be prepared to handle that. Just stock questions are not difficult. Why MBA? I think anybody could ask. Why MBA now? If you're an engineer, why are you switching? If you are a commerce graduate, why not study for a CA? These are stock questions. These you should have good replies for anyway, because they will serve you well, interview after interview. People can ask them. They might not ask them, but you should be prepared in case they crop up. But more interesting we find is the candidate's specific profile. So you've lived in a foreign country, prepare for a question. I have lived in 3 or 4 countries now. Anytime I see somebody who's lived outside of India, I'm definitely going to ask. You play a musical instrument, there's going to be a question. You like sports, there's going to be a question. So whatever you have highlighted as your strengths, the attractiveness of your profile, prepare to back it up with some evidence. So we had this student, she said she plays tennis, and I was about to brush it off and said, everybody plays tennis. Then I said, you play tennis? And she said, yeah, I play nationals tennis. I'm on the national team. I said, wow, lucky that I asked, From then on, I have always remembered her as the person who plays tennis at the national level. So be prepared to give some evidence, even if you say something like, I like to travel. Natural question will be, where all have you been? Have you been to Jammu? Have you been to Kerala? Have you been to Northeast? Have you been to Gujarat? Natural questions. Nobody's trying to fox you. Nobody's trying to, poke holes in your story. But you brought it upon yourself. You said you like to travel, then we are going to ask you this. You say you're interested in football, we're going to ask you what's your favorite team. Okay. So we are responding in some way to the information that you have put forward. So we take the information that you put forward, we digest that information, we have a mental picture of you. Until we meet you on Zoom, we don't really know what kind of person you are. But we have a mental picture. You are an engineer with 2 years of experience in IT, and you have a tendency to study finance. Okay, I come in with that mindset. So I'm going to ask you, what were your projects like? If you worked in IT, you must have worked on some projects, And if you say something like, I don't remember, that is, how would I say, that is discouraging. Because we are trying to meet you halfway by giving you a topic that we think you'll be comfortable talking about. We're not trying to bring up topics that will sort of, create trouble for you. But if you don't meet us halfway and say something like, I don't know, I don't remember, I wasn't interested, then you probably, it's just fine. Not everybody is excited about their job. Not everybody is, enthusiastic about the project. But then you should do yourself a favor and not mention it. Don't take the conversation in that direction and then sort of fail to deliver. So that's all I'm going to say. You should reflect on your own life story as it's coming through. I look at class 10, then you're going to a boarding school, then class 12, you're somewhere in a big city. So I'm probably going to ask, why were you in boarding school, and what was the difference, and how did you like growing up there? So whatever you've put down in your CV, in your application, please be mindful of it. Understand that a person is going to, these are the talking points that we have to raise. Otherwise, what do we have to talk about? So you can control the conversation by, first of all, filling the application form nicely. And this is something that I tell people, it's not just a form, you are actually getting an opportunity to showcase yourself, to highlight yourself. So you can fill the application form in a way that engages attention. And then for every point that you have put up, you say you're active in student government, you should be able to say something like, I was the vice president of the student council when I was in school, or I was the mess secretary when I was in college, some evidence of. So essentially, the conversation is within your control as long as you control it properly through what you write and then your preparation. If you feel that you are not well prepared, you should talk to a friend or two and ask them to mock interview you. So give them a copy of your application form and then tell them, what would you ask me if you met a person like me? described as in this form, what would you ask me? And that will probably give you a little bit of a head start in terms of preparing. But do prepare for the interview. Don't come in cold, because some questions can be anticipated. And it's a shame if you don't exploit those. Some you cannot anticipate. The flow of conversation goes in a particular way, and then something very obscure comes up. But some questions you yourself have planted the seeds for. And those ones you should prepare and come. If you're an engineer, why are you switching to management? If you're a commerce graduate, why not go to CA? If you've studied liberal arts, pure science, what made you think about management? These are all valid and fair questions that you can anticipate. I'm going to stop there and have you ask questions now. So generally understand that we are not trying to wrong foot you, and we are somebody is asked, what if a BBA student? BBA student, we might ask you what all you have learned in BBA, just to check to what extent there will be an overlap between what you have done and what is coming up ahead of you. Because our intake is a mixed batch of BBA, BCom, BE, BTech, BA, BSc. So we teach a lot of finance 101, marketing 101, which may be somewhat related to what you learned in BBA, and those are nice to talk about as well. So you control the conversation by preparing for it properly, by filling your form properly, and anticipating at least those points that can be anticipated, and preparing a story around it. If you have a gap year, it's not a problem, but you should say something that you achieved in your gap year. We don't look at at all unfavorably with people who have gap years. If they can tell us what they did in that gap year, if you say you traveled, or you helped run the family business, or you did something for your parents or your siblings, that's just fine, no problem with that. But you need to have thought about it. Expect the question. Expect the question. So I could read some questions out of the Q&A and chat box, but let me see if there's anything burning there. Otherwise, what are the common questions asked in an interview? Yeah, we can ask you to introduce yourself. That's a common way of starting. Can you, in 30 seconds or 2 minutes, say something about yourself? Cutoff for interview, there is not a specific cutoff, because we are going to combine this with your scores from 10, 12, undergraduate, your CAT, XAT, CMAT, whatever. Everything together will give us a measure of, and NMAT as well. And then we get a measure of student applicant quality. And then we go to the top of the list and start offering interviews. Some people come to us, some people go elsewhere. As the list moves along, we invite more and more people, but there isn't a specific cutoff for the interview. Having said that, management, as you know, is quite a talking oriented discipline. Management is not like engineering where you sit in the back office and even if you can't say a word, you can still survive. Management is all about talking to customers, talking to dealers, talking to managers, talking to other media. So you have to show some degree of proficiency in conversation. You should not come across as tongue-tied just because somebody put a question on you. But other than that, family business experience is definitely counted, but you have to document it. What were you doing in the family business? And if you can talk about that, I think we are good. Panel might grill us on graduation subjects. It is possible, but I do have, I'm an engineer turned MBA and so on. So when somebody says engineering, especially they say electronics engineering, which used to be my specialty, I might ask a question or two, but I will not disqualify you. I'm just curious. Do you remember what was taught to you? Because in a way, it's a forerunner of what is to come, isn't it? If you can remember stuff in engineering, you might also remember stuff that you learned in your MBA. But it is not a cutoff or all kinds of other problems. So there will be VAT. Currently, this year, we are not doing VAT, sir. We are looking at your application and also looking at the part of the score, the standardized test score that deals with reading and writing. So verbal section, comprehension section, and so on. And from there, we are going to try and pick up your reading and writing competence. We tried doing VAT in the past, and it is not as easy to run online as it is to do. Normally, when you should do offline interviews, we'd sit you down and we'd give you a topic, a piece of paper and a pen and ask you to write. But on the online medium, it doesn't work so well. It's not as predictive anymore. So we are not doing VAT this year unless we go offline and do face-to-face interviews, in which case VAT is definitely back on the table. Articleship counts as experience, it may not count as formal experience, but when we are looking at two candidates, one has articleship and one doesn't, obviously we prefer. Fees and stuff, I think Akshay will be better able to tell you. I know the fees, but it's just that I would rather not take that question. If somebody has taken a drop of 2 years to practice for medical, I think that's fine. It sounds kind of odd that you did only that during that time, but if you learned anything else during that time, it's better. But still, if you say you put your whole heart and soul into preparing for medical and it didn't work out, we don't hold that against you. The number of medical aspirants is way more than the number of seats. So we do realize that many people prepare for medical and don't get it, and that's just fine. So generally speaking, understand that the questions are well intentioned. There is nobody trying to take you down or make you uncomfortable. So these are some of the questions that we see here. But do prepare. Don't particular NMAT cutoff. We are looking at 222 and higher this year. 222 and higher. Should you wear formals for the interview? Yes, on the top half, and then you can wear shorts also, as long as it's on Zoom. Okay. So you can wear a nice shirt. If you feel up to it, you can even wear a tie. And if you wear a jacket, nothing like it. But other than that, you can wear shorts or pajamas or whatever it is that you want to wear. So that is what we are looking at. Dress is not that important. It's only that you should look professional. As long as you look professional, all is good. We are not looking at designer clothes or how well you dress or how beautiful you look, but it so shows a signs you're sincere about the interview. Just as we took the trouble to wear a full sleeve shirt and come to the interview, you did the same. So you returned our courtesy. That's all. Nothing more than that. Don't have specific knowledge of what was taught. Get a broad cover story on what you learned. If it was physics, then a broad cover story of what in physics interested you and so on. So make sure that you can talk about, I'm sure after studying 3 years of physics, you can talk for physics for 5 minutes with somebody who hasn't studied physics. That should not be too hard. So do prepare that. Due to COVID, interviews will be online. And I have 2 question marks after that. It's like, right, yeah, you're in luck. Currently, it's planned to be online. But if Omicron subsides and things come back to normal, it might not be online. Okay, so be prepared for that as well. We might come to your city and interview you in person. Profile a pharmaceutical dental student. This is fine. You're just like any other student. We treat you as a normal, maybe we'll think of you as a STEM, science, technology, engineering, and medicine type of student, but we don't discriminate against any backgrounds or profiles. Many people are asking, interview process is online. It's like hopeful. Yeah, it's probably online right now. As of today, it's online. If you're aiming for finance, do you should need certificate? No, I don't think so. I think you are coming here to learn. What you need to show is an open mind. You don't need to already know finance. If you already know finance, what are we going to teach you? How many graduation subjects should be prepared? No, I don't think we were talking subject-wise. We're talking about what you liked and stuff like that. So there are a fair number of questions coming up. I should probably stop for a moment and.
Professor Das, sorry if I can just jump in. There are 2 questions. Which
yes,
are
please.
Sort of burning. One is, of course, Pranjal is asking repeatedly that are they evaluated on the basis of exams or profile overall? And I know we are jumping to the admission questions, but because you're here with us right now, I think it would be really helpful for us.
Sure. We do look at your test scores. They count for a percentage that I am not going to reveal right now. And the other thing that counts is your class 10, class 12, and graduation marks. Another thing that counts for is the interview. Another thing that counts for is any special extracurricular achievements that you have. And so all of this is put together into a measure of applicant quality. And then we invite our top applicants based on that composite measure of applicant quality. Yes, they all count. Definitely they do. And but we don't have specific cutoffs we do as in class 10 minimum 60%, class 12 minimum 60%, graduation minimum 60%. We will not be able to waive these deadlines. I'm sorry, because these are hard constraints, hard sort of cutoffs. Same thing with test scores: 75 in CAT, 75 in XAT, 85 in CMAT, 222 in NMAT. These are things that we cannot flex. So somebody has put CAT and NMAT, whichever qualifies you will be counted. So CAT of 75 or better will be counted, or NMAT of 222 and better will be counted. Always the better one will be. Your best score will be used to evaluate your application.
Thank you, Professor Das. And I think the other question is, a lot of students are interested in pursuing an MBA in finance at IFMR,
Yes.
and they're not from a finance background. So
Right.
some of them are asking that, what can they do? It's not just about preparation, but how would they be evaluated if they are from a non-finance background?
All right. No, we are a good finance school. We are well known for finance. Our finance placements are excellent also. So definitely, if you're thinking of studying finance, please do think about coming here. It's a really good school. What you need to prepare beforehand is not, there isn't a lot that you can prepare, I think whoever you are going to find our first year accounting course and our first year finance courses challenging. This is a given, and there is no shame in that. It's not only engineers and science people who find it hard, even commerce people find it hard. So it is going to be hard. That is something you have to accept. When you come here, it's going to, you may be slightly better shape if you're business or commerce background, but these courses are going to be hard. And the only thing that you can potentially do is to improve your Excel skills and your overall numeracy skills. If you brush up a little bit on your algebra, if you do a little bit of Excel formulas and so on, it may prepare you better. We will teach you Excel, by the way, when you come here. We have a prep course before you start the term, and that includes a week-long Excel immersion. So you'll learn it here as well. But that's the one that I think, those are things that you can prepare by yourself before you come here. So you hit the ground running. But I don't know if there is anything that you can do to ease the pain of that first encounter with finance. Okay, when you come here, it's going to hurt. Okay, finance 101, accounting, quantitative methods, statistics. There's no easy way to get past these. Okay, you suffer, but there are another 180 people along with you who are suffering. So you'll be all right. They will survive, you will survive, we'll all survive. So you don't need to fuss too much about it before you come. But understand that when you come here, it's going to be really intense. It's a 10-week semester, and it's going to fly by as if like it's 2 days long. It's going to be really, really intense. But that's the only way we can get it done, isn't it? MBA is only 2 years. That is 6 trimesters. If we don't pack the stuff in, then we'll never be able to finish in time. So prepare for some hectic finance and accounting immersion when you come here. But other than that, nothing that you need to do before. Okay, nothing that you need to do from before.
Last question, Professor Das. I know you also have to be somewhere, but last question is, is the knowledge of advanced maths or math important for candidates to pursue finance?
Sure. I think there are some specializations like quantitative finance or even data science where knowing more math would help. Generally, class 12 math is good enough for most of our other subjects. But DS and QF, if you want to pursue, you may find that the level of math there is a little bit more advanced, and you may need to do some catch-up work. If you have not done math in college, you might find yourself catching up. I'm not ruling those out for people who haven't done advanced math in college. But if you haven't, you will find that you'll need to learn some calculus, and you'll need to learn some probability and statistics and so on, all of which is taught here, but that is not necessarily for everybody. I think those are niche specializations. I would suggest you come here with an open mind, and check it out. When you see what kind of people are applying and you think I am as good as them, I know as much math as them, go ahead and apply. Be bold, be aggressive. I mean, there's no harm. But so I don't presuppose a rocket science background, but there are. One could imagine that marketing and HR would be a little on the softer side, and finance and operations a little bit on the quant side. But the exact mix you will find out after you come here. Okay, if it's good for you or not.
Thank you, Professor Das. And I think these questions are simply not going to end.
Yeah, I know. I know. Thank you for your questions. I'm very much impressed
Yes.
that you ask so many questions. It shows your interest and your commitment. We are very much encouraged by your questions. We don't necessarily manage to answer all of them. I think you've answered a range of them, and using them, you can sort of, extrapolate or interpolate what my answers to the other ones might have been. But generally, remember, we are not trying to intimidate you. We are not trying to fault you. We are not trying to catch you on the wrong foot. That's not the point. It's a half an hour interview. We want to have a good, interesting conversation. And as we have that conversation, we'll be taking notes to see if there are any special issues that we should anticipate, or is there any special competency that you bring to the table and we should keep in mind. So all else being equal, we would like to take you in over other people. So use the interview to build your case, to strengthen your case, to have a decent conversation, if not anything else, to prepare for your next interview somewhere else. Okay. So, but please don't take it in the sense that we will make it uncomfortable. We will not make it uncomfortable for you. It is not our agenda to do that. If it becomes uncomfortable,
Thank you, Professor Das.
you probably have shared the blame. All right. Stay well. Everybody stay well, stay healthy, and
Professor
I wish
Das,
you all the best.
we have one last question for you
Yes,
from Mehek.
sure.
Mehek needs to ask your question. Go ahead,
Sure,
Mehek.
please do.
Yes,
Please.
yes. So thank you, Professor Das, so much for those incredible insights. I had a quick question in mind. So as a part of your experience of so many years as chair of admissions,
Right.
what is perhaps one funny or interesting interview experience that you have had that you'd like to share with us?
Okay. I think people always surprise you with their candid replies. There was somebody I asked, why did you apply to IFMR and when did you apply? She said 3 hours before the deadline. And I asked her, like, did you even check where IFMR was? It was in Kashmir or Kanyakumari. And she said, honestly, sir, there was no time for that. 3 hours before the deadline, somebody said, hey, IFMR may be a good college for you. So I picked up the admission form and started filling it. And she just did fine. She works in a multinational bank now, has been there for a year plus. She graduated about a year and a half ago. So people tell you very honest things, which make you kind of laugh. And somebody we were pressing, with some math stuff. How do you find the roots of a quadratic equation or something? And he looked and said, sir, BCom ho, sir. And that's supposed to explain, like don't mess with me, okay? I'm just a BCom, okay? And we said, even BCom people are taught this. In fact, this is taught in class 12, So being BCom is not a fair excuse, but the way he said it, it was funny, So people are generally candid and relaxed. I think that speaks to the quality of the admissions process. And I can assure you that we will read your files, we will prepare, we will give you a chance to put your best foot forward, to showcase and highlight yourself, strengthen your case. And who got shortlisted? The BCom guy, yes, he did get shortlisted. He did get shortlisted. And yeah, so think of it as a conversation. It's not an evaluation. It's not an assessment. It's not an exam. It's a conversation. We find out more about you. You also might find out things about us, like where we are located, what our facilities are like, and so on. And you may decide that this is the right school for you, or otherwise, but it is always cordial, it's always professional, and it's always, friendly. That much I can assure you. Everything else depends on you. 27 negative factors, no way, man. How can 27 be a negative factor? If you're within the age cutoff, you're good. All right, I'm going to back off now.
Thank you, Professor Das. Otherwise, honestly, I think we can do the entire session like this and we will be
No. I think we have other things to do. So let's.
No, but seriously, thank you so much. And for, I think, bringing the focus back to the topic of the conversation and also answering all the candidates who are here. Of course, you're deeply interested in IFMR GSB, and we promise you, we're going to take a lot of your questions at the end in the Q&A section as well. And we're going to do a separate session on admissions for IFMR GSB very, very soon. And don't forget, our round 1 cutoff is the 28th of this month. So be mindful of that. And Mehek, back to you, and thank you, Professor Das.
Thank you for the opportunity. All the best.
Thank you so much, Professor. So as B school students, we've been there, we've done that not too long ago. Often when we sit together and sometimes when we reflect over our admission experiences over a cup of coffee, mostly virtually these days. We discuss how we wish we had dressed differently or had better posture or the answers that we thought that we had absolutely nailed and which got us into IFMR GSB. Well, today we are about to bring this conversation live to you. So hopefully we can take something away from our experience. So for that, firstly, I'd like to call up Jeet. Jeet, can you please share your experience with us? And guys, Jeet comes from an engineering background.
Okay, so first of all, I'll introduce myself. My name is Jeet Jani. I come from a very middle class family and I stay in Gujarat. So, what Mehak said, I am an engineer and I am a fresher too. So, talking about my personal interview experience, it was a quite chill interview. So, you don't need to worry about that. The questions I got was like, I did some good internships also, and my profile had some good projects also. So all you need to do is you need to touch upon those areas and you need to explore yourself because you have already outnumbered those people in the entrance exam. And as Professor Das told, you just need to explore yourself and present yourself. So it doesn't need you don't need to be nervous and all. So I got some very good questions like how was I come from a background. I did my BTech in mechanical engineering. So I one or two questions regarding my mechanical engineering, regarding my internship, how well you were, how did you manage your time, so why do you want to do MBA after BTech, and how would you put yourself as a fresher, and what would you communicate after this an MBA. And so these all questions are very normal. So what you need to do is I would like to give three tips to you. First of all, do your homework, okay, as because professors are also going to come to you and they'll be prepared. So also you need to be prepared, be composed and calm, and drive the interviews in the areas where you are strong. There will be one unique thing in your CV where you can touch upon and you can explore that thing, and you can drive the whole interview process in that thing. And these are all things that these are very small things, but it matters a lot. And this conversation is going to be very useful to us if you are in a interview, so it will make you more confident. One thing I would like to add here, which I didn't got the advice, is like inculcate different skills in you, like improve the transferable skills and competency skills. You know that you have the ability to crack the interview, that's why you are here, that's why you're sitting in the front of the panelist, but you don't know how to prove yourself. So that should not be there. You improvise the transferable skills and competency skills, and I'm sure you'll dazzle out the interview and you will be going for the next round. So that's it from my side.
Thank you so much, Jeet. Also, I would like to ask that since you're from an engineering background, were you scared that, there are going to be some business terminologies that will be asked? Because since it's a B school, there could be some questions that you're not aware of. And if then, how did you handle them?
Yeah, I was prepared for that. I didn't have any prior finance knowledge. They also don't expect any hardcore knowledge of finance, because after all you have done your science and you have done your engineering. So what they need, like how much eager you are to do this MBA, and how keen interest you are having to do this course. And as professor told that if you are from an engineering background, you will suffer. But what I feel is like the commerce people who learned these all things in 1 or 1.5 years, you will be learning in 3 months. So at the end of the day, you can beat them. Don't feel like you can't. If this helps you, you just stay confident. I got some very good questions regarding finance, how this finance thing is going on during this COVID era. So they all need to know what is your thought process. So do mind mapping in that particular way, and be very confident and be very frank and honest with your answer. And I'll think you'll you'll pass the interview process. That's all.
Thank you so much, Jeet. Now I'd like to move forward to Lakshay. Lakshay comes with a BCom background and he's a fresher. Over to you,
Thank you
Lakshay.
for yeah. Thank you for the opportunity, Max. So I would like to introduce myself. My name is Lakshya Agnihotri. I am from Chandigarh. I am a first year MBA student and member of Team Genesis. So my interview experience was before an MBA. I was a BCom finance student. So I thought being a commerce student, I would be asked some difficult questions from the field of finance. But the total opposite happened. They checked my basics. They wanted to know what I've learned from my graduation. It was more of a conversation than an interview. The professors, they were basically trying to find my area of interest. They wanted to know my point of view regarding some recent topics. I remember farmer protests were going on. So they questioned me on my point of view on that topic. And how would I manage things in an MBA course? I felt that the focus was to know the applicant in a better way. They even asked me questions regarding my hobby, what I do in my free time. I remember I said that I love to write short stories. They asked me what type of stories I like. One interesting question was they asked me about my role model. I remember I said MS Dhoni, and the panelist and I had a conversation regarding where I see myself in 5 years. So I used to practice by looking into mirror, recording on laptop my responses, and this is how my interview went.
Thank you so much, Lakshay. Also, I'd like to know, so whenever we sit for an interview, there's always some sort of anxiety that is going on. So, if at all you had any, and how did you deal with it? How do you prepare yourself for such moments?
Yeah, there was a lot of stress when you prepare for an interview. You don't know what questions could be asked, but there are certain few questions, like few common questions, like why MBA, why IFMR, which specialization you want to pursue, and why that specialization. Some current topics also. So, to prepare, I prepared in advance for such questions just to know that just to get that added advantage. So I am fully prepared for few common questions where I could present myself in a much better way. So that's how I think I cope with the stress at that point of time.
That is great to know, Lakshay. I'm sure the students will learn something from this. Now I'd like to move forward to Saurabh. So Saurabh comes from a BMS background. Saurabh, please take over.
Thank you, Meg. So, uh, preparing for a personal interview, I guess, in my time, what I did was the first thing was that you need to discuss it with your friends. I mean, just collect as many experiences, as many questions as you can, because I think one would never want him or her to be caught off guard. I mean, some questions which you don't know. So the first thing I always wanted to do that I just need some experiences. I just need some questions so that I can think about them and be prepared beforehand going to the interview. So like you guys, like I was an aspirant and I was really anxious. And just before the interview, I discussed with my friends that what should I do, and then three tips I still remember. They're still fresh in my mind. That three tips I still remember that this in this world the information is a vast pool. There's a vast pool of information, and it is very difficult for you to just know many things or most of the things. It's the best you can do that whatever you know, whatever you have done, or whatever you think your interest lies in, just know everything, just know what you can do about it. And yeah, as Jeet mentioned also, that guide them through your interview, guide them through your CV, and whatever you have done in your undergraduate, just be be bold and be really assertive, with an assertive outlook, and just go all out and be very honest. Because to be very honest, as Amit sir mentioned, that he has an experience of over 20 years just interviewing aspirants. So similarly, there are professors who just know what you're going to say just by looking at your CV. So you can't be dishonest with them, you can't be dishonest to yourself. So these are some facts that I knew beforehand and really helped me too. And also, uh, after my school, I did take a drop year, and it was kind of I was thinking of getting into other colleges and doing maybe engineering or doing anything else. But yeah, I changed my background to commerce. I did science. I did take science in my school, and I was really anxious that how would it play? How would I change my background? But I also prepared questions regarding that experience. I prepared that what I'll say when they ask me about my drop year, what did I do? So yeah, these are some questions you need to prepare. And even though you know that there's a vast pool of information, but you definitely need to be prepared beforehand going to the interview. So these really helped me in the
Uh,
interview.
Thank you so much, Saurabh, for those insights. Also, I remember we have had a conversation, and you've always been very much involved in sports, be it cricket, football, basketball. You've always been very much involved. So, what do you think that some qualities that you take from the sports, and how do you apply it to management? Does it help?
Yeah, Mehak, yeah, just as we have before, I mean, just prior to this, prior to, I mean, in December, February, when we were in December and November, when we were on campus and we were discussing many things and how did our interviews go and something like that. So I still remember that the question asked to me that I did mention that I was a captain of my school cricket team, my football team, something like that and stuff. So they did ask me the same question, that how would you apply those skills in your MBA life? Because MBA is a holistic development. MBA is not just preparing you for the corporate world. It's just preparing for your life, how you manage things and everything. So I still remember that the answer I gave, I did mention a situation in my cricket team that there was a conflict between two people, and one wanted something to happen in the team and the other wanted other things. So yeah, I did try everything out, and just with all the experiences, the teamwork and how you lead a group and how you talk in the group and how you lead by example. So yeah, many and the never back down approach to a particular problem. So yeah, I mean, everything is life. The experiences you have, everything applies to MBA. So not just sports, everything. So that's all I want to say.
And that's great to know. Thank you so much, Saurabh. Now that we have heard from Professor Das as well as my friends at IFMR GSB, it is now time to bring it all together. I'd like to invite Bhakti Shah, Director of Outreach at Kriya University, to share with us some general guidelines and key takeaways from this conversation. Ms. Shah has over 15 years of experience in marketing and a master's degree in international broadcast journalism. Over to you, Bhakti.
Thank you, Mehak, Jeet, Saurabh, Lakshay, and of course, Professor Das. The whole idea of having this conversation was that as a business school, we understand the anxiety that is associated with the final step, which is your personal interview. And therefore, we really wanted to, share some insights with you. And I'm just going to honestly get straight to it, because it is the critical last stage. Now, I request my colleague to share the screen, but imagine this, right? You've made it through multiple rounds, right? From the test score cutoff to maybe if there's a WAT in whichever colleges have WAT, as well as a group discussion. And now it's time for the business school to make that final selection of their cohort or batch, right? Now, for a good business school, the PI round is what helps us pick the best candidates from a set of great candidates. So after listening to Professor Das and the students, I'm sure you got some really good takeaways. So I want to bring this all together and also leave you with some very strong tips and guidelines on how are you now going to prepare, right? How are you going to structure your preparation? I'm not sure if the screen is being shared yet. Can we share the screen, please? Great. Thank you, Saurabh. All right. So if we can go into the presentation mode, you can just click on enable editing and click on PPT board. Yeah. Just go into presentation. Yeah. Bottom right. Bottom right. Just click on full. Yeah. Just go to the full screen. Yes. Thank you. Okay, so we can go on to the next slide, please. The first question that you need to understand, right, is why do business schools conduct personal interviews to begin with? It is a critical step because a business school in this round, in this personal interview round, the final round, is looking for certain things in candidates, which an exam cutoff or any other assessment cannot give them an idea of. The first thing is clarity. As Saurabh has said, and many others have said in this conversation, business schools want to understand how much clarity you have as a candidate on why you want to pursue an MBA, right? Are you doing it for the right reasons? Are you just doing it because everybody else is doing it? Why do you think a business a business education is really going to help you, or business degree is going to help you? And how does it align to your goals as an individual? So you need to really be able to have a lot of clarity and convey that clarity, which is what brings me to the next point, that We want to understand how well you can convey and structure your thoughts and tell us why you want to be with us and why you want to study, why you want to get a business degree. We also want to see your confidence. And, honestly, let me tell you, confidence does not mean that you have an answer to everything. It doesn't mean that you know everything. Confidence can simply be exuded by being natural, structured, paying attention to your tone and the stability of your voice, and how you're going to handle what you're not familiar with. So confidence is not knowing everything. Confidence is simply being able to convey what you know and how you handle what you don't know and how you're going to communicate that, right? So don't try to be very overconfident and over smart and be like, oh, I know this, I know that. Your attitude is also very, very important, and that's one of the factors, right? So if you're confident, you know your stuff, you researched you know your journey, you're able to communicate it well. How you do it is very, very important, because attitude is also a very, very important part of who you are as a person. Are you coming across as someone who can collaborate with others? Are you coming across as someone who's aware, who's empathetic, who in general has a lot of intellectual honesty, that can you say, no, I don't know this, when you don't know something? Or are you someone who simply wants to have an answer to everything that you're asked, even if you don't know what the answer is? I would also say that fitment, right? Just the way the business school is assessing you for fitment, every business school has a certain culture, has a certain ethos. Every individual, every candidate has an ethos that is very inherent to them. So what does that ethos that you carry, does it fit with the business school that you're going to be a part of, right? If there's a fundamental misalignment, that could potentially be a challenge. So even before you decide where you want to apply and where you want to appear for interviews, and you might do multiple interviews with business schools you might not be serious about, but that's not advisable. Don't waste too much time, right, in appearing for every interview. But at the same time, the ones that you want to appear for, make sure that you understand what that alignment is between you and the business school. We can go on to the next slide, and I'm just going to say this, right? When you have some of these factors that you understand, that why is a business school interviewing you to begin with, now you can start working on how are you going to put your best foot forward. Storytelling is everything. Okay, how many of you, and a lot of you must be following marketing blogs and Gary Vaynerchuk and all these influencers. You know that content is king, storytelling is king, and this has nothing to do with whether you're a marketing professional or you're a finance professional. At the end of the day, every individual needs to be able to communicate and structure their thoughts, right? So it is, for an interview, it is paramount that you are not only structured but coherent in what you're going to say. You need to have a story of your life that makes sense. So I'm going to share an exercise with you that should help you prepare, because you need to storyboard your life. You're a sum of your experiences, and you need to structure your experiences. So if you look at, if we can go on to the next slide, if you look at these steps that are going to appear, you will see that there are different components on how you prepare. Step number one, who are you as a person, right? I want you to make a note of these steps, because when you're preparing for an interview, make sure that you actually have a checklist that you go through. So one is, who are you as a person? Professor Das said, and it's a fact, it's not just in business school interviews, in any professional interviews, any job interviews, anywhere you go, the first question that you will be asked is, tell us something about yourself. And trust me, as someone who has interviewed hundreds of candidates, if not more, this is probably the toughest question for anyone to answer. It's easy to talk about, relatively easier to talk about other things, but the hardest thing to talk about is yourself, usually. So when this is the basic, okay? So elevator pitch, remember this term, when you enter the business school world, you're going to hear it more and more and more. An elevator pitch is basically a brief, concise narration of the product that you are selling. And here in the interview, you're selling yourself. So your elevator pitch is critical. You need to be prepared with a 1 to 2 minute introduction of yourself, which summarizes who you are, where you're from, okay, and why you are interested in what you are appearing for, whether it's a job or whether it's a business school, right? So an elevator pitch is critical. Your USPs are a very important part of this. Just the way you have product USPs, you have your USPs. Self-awareness. Now, when you're creating this pitch, before that, you need to be aware of what you've done so far. And often we forget all the things that we've done. So it's very important for you to make a list of your achievements, your learnings, your successes, etc. Right? And last but not the least, attitude check. I've already talked about it. So, I'm not going to go back into that, but it's a very personal thing. But an attitude check is very, very important. Now, once you have evaluated this aspect of who am I, who is Bhakti, right, as a person, then you start rationalizing what your goals are. So one is, what do you want to do, right? Basically, I mean, in this VUCA world, again, a very often used terms, right? It is difficult to predict what the future is going to be like. There are all kinds of possibilities. There are jobs that are going to come into the market that don't exist. I'm going to share some reports with you that will tell you about the future of jobs by Ernst & Young and FICCI and NASSCOM, and it's going to shock you what those reports are going to say. So in this very unpredictable world, you need to have some semblance of clarity that where am I right now? And what do I want to do in the next few years? Comfort with uncertainty, because like I said, VUCA world. So while you have all the plans, they often say that life is often what happens to you when you're busy making plans for it. So you might have a plan A, B, C, but remember, things can go in a tizzy because that's the way the world works. And last but not the least, research your dreams. I cannot tell you how many disappointing interviews I have taken, or many of us have taken, because the candidate fundamentally does not know what they're talking about. They are happy to use jargon. They're throwing around words like data analytics and AI and machine learning. And honestly, when you get even one step deeper into this conversation, they really don't know what they're talking about. So before you talk about something, make sure you know what you're talking about. So have clarity and research your dreams before you make tall claims about them. And the next step is, what have you done so far? So if I say that I'm very passionate, like Professor Das said, if you say you're very passionate about traveling, the natural question is, oh, great, where have you traveled, right? And if you say, well, I've not really had the opportunity to travel, it's fine, but you need to rationalize why. You could actually be very passionate about traveling simply because you've not had the opportunity to travel because of maybe financial constraints, and you want to break that, and that's a driving force in your life. Or you can actually say that, well, I've traveled to here and here and here, and this is what I am very passionate about. So whatever you're going to talk about, demonstrated interest is very, very important. If you say you're passionate about finance, now, if you're passionate about finance, what have you done about it? Have you taken on any courses? Have you, are you, do you subscribe to any publications? Do you keep up with the world of finance, stocks, etc.? How are you personally invested in that domain is very important. And that's subject matter knowledge, because when you are invested in a domain, you will have subject matter knowledge and you will not need to faff or bluff, right? And then whatever relevant achievements you have in that domain, you need to make sure that you listed them down. So when you're talking, you don't miss anything. And last but not the least, every institution will ask you almost without fail, why do you want admission to this B school? Why do you want to come and study with us? right? You need to research the institution, whether it is for a job interview or whether it is for a business school interview. If you don't know who you're talking to, because we know the candidate that we are talking to, we have your resume with us, so we've done a fair bit of research, whatever is possible. But if you don't know a thing or two about the institution you've applied to, that reflects really badly. Know the faculty and departments. That's always an X factor, right? Do some research. Who are the professors? What are some of the top achievements in the recent times of the university? For example, at IFMR GSB, Professor Anand Nageshwaran, who was the, the dean at IFMR GSB and is now visiting faculty at IFMR GSB, has just been appointed as the Chief Economic Advisor to the Government of India. And that is very recent. So you need to have certain general awareness about the institution that you're applying to. How is the school best suited to your goals? Why do you want to go to that school? What is it that the school brings to the table that is going to help you achieve your goals, and vice versa? How are you going to contribute to the business school through your initiatives, your leadership, and your own enthusiasm and expertise, right? So this is in a nutshell. I encourage you to take a screenshot if you want of this slide so you can actually use these steps. We can move on to the next slide, please. Thank you. So now that you've done your structuring of reflection, that was a storyboarding of your journey, you need to now prepare your message. So one, draft it, write it down. Don't be one of those people who thinks, I'll remember everything. Trust me, nobody remembers everything. The number one skill to learn is research, and then after that is note taking. You must take notes, list them down, and then practice in front of the mirror or video record yourself. Try this, okay? It really works. Do a few mocks with yourself, build that confidence. But also, if you want to give a mock to a friend or family member, choose someone that you're comfortable with and who will help you build your confidence and give you good feedback. When I say good feedback, I'm saying constructive feedback. You want to make sure that you're building your confidence before an interview and not breaking it, okay? And last but not the least, don't under or over prepare. And when I say over prepare, this is not an exam where you're cramming till the last second. Be comfortable with your journey, be self-aware, and that's the mantra. Yes, we can move on. Okay, I'm just going to leave you with the last set of tips. These are some general guidelines. I know they seem like no-brainers, but trust us when we tell you, a lot of candidates, don't realize some of these things. So one, okay, so general tips, because there are no tricks in life. So we're not giving you tricks, we're only giving you tips. One, be well rested before any interview. Please avoid late nights. It's just a matter of one day. Just make sure that you're rested, you're not sleepy. If your interview is right after lunch, don't have a heavy lunch. Make sure that you're alert and agile, because you need to listen to the questions that are being asked. One of the biggest challenges in any interviews is that the candidate is in such a hurry to answer that they forget to listen to the question. So be very agile and alert. Turn up at least 10 minutes before your virtual interview and 15 minutes before your in-person interview. Trust me when I say this, the worst thing you can do is be late. The worst thing you can do, or be dot on time. Always be a couple of minutes before time, at least. It says a lot about you as an aspiring professional. Choose to be dressed in formal. Somebody's asked, earlier in the session, should I be dressed in formals? Yes. At least if it's virtual, the upper half, like Professor Amita said, in the lower half, if you want to wear pajamas or shorts, that's your call. But what we see is very, very important. So please make an effort to be well presented. Pick a quiet room. We know that because everybody is at home, especially in virtual scenarios, not everybody might have the luxury of having a separate room in the house. So request your family members that, it's a very important interview, request for some silence, or see if you want to go to a friend's house or a relative's house where you can get a separate room, because these are important important experiences that are going to shape your future. So make that effort. Check your internet connectivity, please, right? And keep your mobile hotspot ready in case of bad Wi-Fi, so you can immediately switch it. If you know you have frequent electricity outages, make sure that you are connected to your mobile hotspot to begin with. Choose a suitable virtual background. It's always advisable to have a virtual background, but don't everybody loves a beach background, but pick something that is a little neutral. Don't interrupt the interviewer mid-question. Okay, don't be in such a hurry to talk. Listen. Okay, so don't interrupt the interviewer when they are speaking. Listen to every question. I've already said this intently. Keep responses brief but comprehensive. You please cannot go on and on, right? There is generally an attention span, right? Like now I've gone on for 10-15 minutes. I know many of you will lose your attention span. So in another minute, if I don't wrap up, I've lost you. Okay. Everyone has an attention span. So please don't keep your answers in a monologue. Be aware, general awareness, critical. They can ask you about things that are happening in the world. One assumes that for the aspiration that you hold, you know a little bit about what's happening in the world around you through newspapers and through media, right? Be natural, be yourself. That's the most important thing. You don't have to be pretending to be very serious, or just be normal and be prepared but not rehearsed. Big difference between being prepared and not rehearsed. Like, I am prepared right now, but I would hate to think that I am rehearsed. Okay, so with that, I'm going to end.